Imagine a time when the very air seemed to carry the seeds of death, where the streets of bustling cities became graveyards, and the learned men of the day struggled to understand and combat unseen enemies. This was the world of medieval medicine, a realm where science and superstition intertwined, and the gap between hope and despair was often as thin as the parchment on which medical texts were written. In the shadow of the Black Death and other epidemics, friars and scholars worked tirelessly to find remedies and cures, often in the face of overwhelming odds. One such figure was William Holme, a Franciscan friar whose writings on medicine offer a glimpse into a world where knowledge was both a lifeline and a source of controversy. In the last chapter, we delved into the writings of William Holme, a Franciscan friar whose works reflect the complex interplay of faith and science in medieval England. This chapter will explore the broader landscape of medical writing in England, focusing on the forms and styles that emerged, particularly those associated with the friars. We will see how these writings differed from the more formal, university-based teachings of medicine, and how they filled a gap left by the slow development of medical education in England. Despite the rich tradition of medical knowledge in Europe, England lagged behind in the formal teaching of medicine at its universities. Unlike in Italy and France, where medical schools flourished, England had no degree-awarding faculty of medicine until the 14th century. This absence of structured medical education meant that the contributions of the friars, particularly the Franciscans and Dominicans, were crucial in disseminating medical knowledge. English monastic houses were among the first to acquire the texts associated with Salernitan medicine, a body of knowledge that originated in the medical school of Salerno, Italy. These texts, which included herbals, antidotteries, and practical guides to diagnosis and treatment, were highly sought after and quickly spread throughout England. The friars, who were keen to integrate medical knowledge into their studies of the Bible and patristic texts, played a pivotal role in this dissemination. Friars like William Holme and Henry Daniel were not just consumers of medical texts, but also creators. They compiled and adapted these texts to suit their needs, often incorporating them into broader works that combined medicine with other areas of knowledge. Henry Daniel's Liber uricrisiarum, for example, drew heavily on Salernitan texts on uroscopy, the practice of diagnosing diseases by examining urine. These compilations were not just academic exercises, but practical tools that could be used in the field. The study of medicine in medieval England was closely linked to natural philosophy, the precursor to modern science. Texts by Aristotle, Galen, and their Arabic commentators were widely studied and translated, forming the foundation of medical education. The friars, who were often well-versed in these texts, used them to explain the natural world and to understand the principles behind medical practices. One of the most significant contributions of the friars to medical education was the development of the Oxford, or English, gloss, an extensive commentary on Aristotle's Libri Naturals, natural philosophy text. This gloss, which emerged in the second half of the 13th century, not only cited the works of prominent scholars like Alfred of Serschel, but also discussed medical texts, particularly the Isagoge of Johannitius, which became a cornerstone of medical education. While the friars were deeply involved in medical writing, their mendicant vocation often put them at odds with the professional practice of medicine. The mendicant orders, such as the Franciscans and Dominicans, were founded on principles of poverty and service, which made it difficult for their members to engage in medical practice for profit. Despite this, a few friars, like John Gaddesden, who wrote the Rosa Anglica around 1313, managed to combine their religious duties with medical scholarship. The mendicant orders were generally wary of their members pursuing medical studies at the universities. They saw such studies as a potential distraction from their primary mission of teaching, preaching, and confession. The rules of the orders, particularly those of the Dominicans and Franciscans, discouraged friars from studying medicine at the university level, viewing it as both a distraction and a potential source of abuse if it led to profiting from medical practice. Despite these challenges, the friars played a unique and crucial role in the development of medical writing in England. Their works, which often combined practical advice with theoretical knowledge, filled a gap left by the slow development of formal medical education. They not only preserved and transmitted existing medical knowledge, but also innovated, creating new forms of medical writing that were both accessible and useful to a wide audience. As we explore the writings of these friars, we will see how their contributions shaped the landscape of medieval medicine in England, leaving a lasting legacy that continues to be studied and admired today. Roger Bacon, a prominent figure in the early 13th century, was a keen critic of the medical education of his time. He believed that the medical teachers at the University of Paris, where he himself had studied and taught, were more focused on endless debates and abstract arguments rather than practical experience. Bacon argued that these teachers neglected crucial areas such as pharmacology, the preparation of drugs, and the proper dosing of medicine. He also pointed out that they failed to teach their students the importance of astrology, alchemy, mathematics, and agriculture in medical practice. Bacon's criticism was part of a broader vision for the role of the Franciscan Friars, who he saw as an independent think tank for the papacy, addressing issues like the Mongol threat and the decline of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. Bacon's critique was not just a personal attack. It was a call for a new approach to education. He believed that the study of languages, mathematics, optics, and experimental science could help the Church defend itself against external and internal threats. His ideas were compiled into a work called the Opus Meius, which he wrote in 1267 to 1268 at the request of Pope Clement IV. In this work, Bacon outlined a comprehensive program for reforming education and scientific practice. He emphasized the importance of experimental knowledge, scientia experimentalis, in testing scientific theories and developing practical applications, such as the prolongation of life and the creation of gold through alchemy. Bacon's ideas were innovative and did not fit within the established genres of medical writing. His work was more polemical and expository, often critiquing the existing methods of teaching and proposing new, more practical approaches. While some of his ideas were later adopted by university teachers, they were often incorporated into the existing scholastic framework, which was more focused on disputation and commentary. In addition to Bacon's work, the Franciscan friars in England were also influenced by the creation of moralizing encyclopedias. One of the most popular of these was De Proprietatibus Rerum, by Bartholomeus Anglicus. These encyclopedias were designed to help friars understand the natural world and its relationship to biblical texts, providing a wealth of information on a wide range of topics, including human anatomy, illnesses, and remedies. They were also useful for preaching, as they provided a rich source of examples and moral lessons. The friars' approach to writing and compiling medical knowledge was collaborative and systematic. They developed study aids like concordances, which were alphabetical lists of words from the Bible or other texts, along with their contexts. These aids were crucial for helping friars quickly find and use information in their preaching, teaching, and confessing. The Dominican friars, for example, created the first biblical concordance in Paris around 1239, and later, English Dominicans produced a more extensive version called the Concordantiae Anglicanae. The friars' methods of compiling and organizing information were also reflected in their medical writings. For example, the Tabula Medicin of 1416 to 1425 was a comprehensive medical reference that used alphabetical ordering and concise entries to make information easily accessible. This approach allowed the friars to create practical resources that could be used by both medical practitioners and laypeople. The friars' medical writings, whether critical or encyclopedic, were part of a broader effort to make knowledge more accessible and practical. They aimed to bridge the gap between theoretical learning and real-world application, a goal that was particularly important in the context of their mission to serve the community through preaching, teaching, and healing. The collaborative efforts of friars in compiling medical and religious works in the Middle Ages were significant achievements that demonstrate the organizational skills and dedication of these religious men. One notable example is the Tabula Septem Custodiarum, completed in 1309 by the Franciscans of Oxford. This work was an index to passages in the writings of the Church Fathers, arranged according to the books of the Bible. Each friar from the Oxford convent was assigned to read a specific work by a church father and note the biblical passages it commented on. These notes were then compiled and organized into a single document, which could be used to find authoritative explanations of scriptural passages. Though originally intended for the Franciscans of the 7 custodies in England, The tabula found its way into other libraries, suggesting its value was widely recognized. Another significant project was the Registrum Angli, a union catalog of books found in 90 monastic and cathedral libraries, compiled around 1320. This massive undertaking involved friars visiting various libraries to assess their holdings. Unlike the Tabula Septem Custodiarum, the Registrum Angli was not a property record but a finding device to help friars locate specific texts. This project had no known equivalent in other parts of Europe, highlighting the unique efforts of the English Franciscans. The Tabula Medicin, a medical handbook begun in 1416 and completed in 1425, was another example of such collaborative work. This encyclopedic guide was compiled by a team of Franciscans, possibly from multiple convents. The friars read various medical texts and compiled remedies and medical knowledge, often crediting specific contributors. The Tabula Medicin was organized alphabetically, a format preferred by the friars for its practicality, unlike the scholastic method of organizing medical knowledge from head to toe. This alphabetical arrangement allowed for easy reference and the addition of new information over time. The text included brief definitions and etymologies of diseases, followed by a series of remedies, some from classical and Islamic sources and others from the personal experiences of the friars. The Tabula Medicin was more than just a remedy book. It included entries on various aspects of practical medicine, such as regimens for health, bathing, and the treatment of children and the elderly. The text was designed to be flexible, with spaces left between entries for future editions. Many of these spaces were indeed used by later contributors, and the margins were also utilized for annotations and additional information. The Tabula Medicin was valued by both friars and university doctors, as evidenced by the additions made by well-known physicians like Thomas Multon. These additions often included new remedies and treatments, which were integrated into the text, making it a growing and evolving resource. The Dominican Henry Daniel also contributed to medical literature with two unique works, the Liber uricrisiarum and the Herbal. The Liber uricrisiarum was a treatise on uroscopy, the practice of diagnosing diseases through the examination of urine. Daniel's work was originally in Latin, but was later translated into English and expanded at the request of his companion, Walter Turner. The Herbal was a compendium of medicinal plants, including recipes for remedies at the end of each entry. These works, like the Tabula Medicin, were designed to be practical and accessible, reflecting the friars' commitment to sharing medical knowledge and improving health care. Henry Daniel's Liber uricrisiarum is a detailed guide on diagnosing illnesses through urine analysis. Unlike other medical works of its time, this treatise is not just a commentary on an existing poem about urine. It is a comprehensive and structured text. Ruth Harvey has noted that it is a learned treatise with clear divisions, arguments, and technical vocabulary, along with annotations. The Liber uricrisiarum is divided into three main sections. The first explains what urine is and how to examine it. The second describes the 20 different colors of urine, and the third details the various contents found in urine. While the primary focus is on uroscopy, the treatise also covers a wide range of other medical and scientific topics, such as human anatomy, digestion, the brain, fevers, medical astrology, and even pregnancy. These topics are not neatly organized but appear almost randomly under the headings of different urine colors, making the Liber uricrisiarum a diverse collection of medical knowledge. Similarly, Daniel's Herbal is a compilation that draws from many written sources, but also includes his own experiences and those of others he met. There are two versions of the Herbal, one where herbs and non-herbal remedies are listed alphabetically in separate sections, and another where they are combined. Both versions were likely compiled by Daniel himself. The sources he used were mostly from the Salernitan period of the 12th century, when Arabic texts were translated into Latin. Daniel often quoted verses within his prose, such as the De Viribus Herborum by Macer Floridus and the Anglicanus Ortus by Henry of Huntingdon. Despite following some alphabetical structures from his sources, Daniel's work is a unique creation, reflecting his personal approach to medical knowledge. The work of scholars on the Henry Daniel Project has shed light on the innovative and ambitious nature of Daniel's writing. His influence spread widely within and outside the mendicant orders, with other writers borrowing, adapting, and imitating his works. For example, the Liber uricrisiarum was widely copied, with over 20 surviving manuscripts, and was adapted into shorter versions for practitioners with limited Latin knowledge. Daniel's decision to translate his Liber uricrisiarum into Middle English was groundbreaking. He recognized the need to invent new terms to express medical concepts in English, combining Latin-derived words with everyday English vocabulary. His goal was to make medical knowledge accessible to more people, not just those who could read Latin. Daniel's preface, written in Latin, aligns with Dominican ideals of preaching to the laity, emphasizing his charitable motives and distancing himself from those who sought profit from medical knowledge. His work was seen as a kind of medical sermon, with a pastoral and charitable function. The Liber uricrisiarum was widely circulated and adapted, with one notable reworking by a Franciscan named Narborough, who added a book of remedies to the original text. This adaptation suggests that Narborough wanted to make the text more useful for both his fellow Franciscans and lay readers. While the Dominicans were prominent in translating medical texts into English, other mendicant orders, like the Franciscans, also contributed. For example, a Middle English translation of a Latin uroscopy text by a Franciscan named Master Bartholomew was made at the request of King Richard II and Queen Anne, demonstrating the broader movement of charitable translation. Another example is found in the British Library's MS Sloane 3489, which contains several Middle English medical texts, including a collection of recipes attributed to Friar Randolph, and a medical dialogue that emphasizes helping the poor. These texts reflect the mendicant mission to use the English language to help both learned and unlearned people. Thomas Multon, a Dominican, wrote a plague tract in English to help people during the pestilence. He combined medical advice with moral teachings, suggesting that both bodily and spiritual health were important in times of crisis. In the late medieval period, English friars developed new ways of writing and compiling medical information. This innovation was partly driven by the lack of advanced medical education in English universities, compared to continental ones. Friars like Henry Daniel, Master Bartholomew, and Thomas Multon used the English language to make medical knowledge accessible to a broader audience, aligning with their mission to help both the learned and the unlearned. Henry Daniel, a Dominican friar, made significant contributions to the field of medicine in the late 14th century. His most notable works, the Liber uricrisiarum and the Herbal, showcase his commitment to making medical knowledge accessible to a broader audience, particularly in the English language. The Liber uricrisiarum is a detailed guide on urine diagnosis, a crucial aspect of medieval medicine. Daniel translated and expanded upon the poem by Gilles de Corbel, adding his own insights and case histories. This work goes beyond its primary focus, delving into various medical topics and emphasizing the importance of practical experience and experimentation. Daniel's approach was unique in its encyclopedic nature, drawing from a wide range of sources, including the De Proprietatibus Rerum by Bartholomeus Anglicus. Similarly, the Herbal is an ambitious compilation of herbal remedies. Daniel sourced his material from earlier Latin verse treatises and prose works on pharmacology. He organized the content alphabetically and included his personal observations, further emphasizing the value of experience. The Herbal exists in two versions, one with separate sequences for herbal and non-herbal simples, and another with an amalgamated but incomplete list. Both versions reflect Daniel's innovative approach to medical writing. Daniel's decision to write in English was driven by charitable motives. He wanted to reach the widest possible lay readership, making medical knowledge more accessible and practical. This choice inspired other friars, both Dominican and Franciscan, to follow his lead. Subsequent versions of the Liber uricrisiarum and independent writings on plague and remedies were also produced in English, building upon Daniel's legacy. The impact of Daniel's work extended beyond his immediate circle. His emphasis on practical experience and the use of case studies influenced medical teaching and practice. His compilations were not only educational tools, but also practical guides for those seeking to understand and treat illnesses. Daniel's contributions are part of a broader tradition of medieval medical literature, which includes the works of other notable figures like Robert Grosseteste and Roger Bacon. These scholars, like Daniel, often strive to bridge the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical application, often challenging the established norms of medical education. In the end, Henry Daniel's legacy lies in his commitment to making medical knowledge accessible and practical. His works, especially the Liber uricrisiarum and the Herbal, stand as testaments to his vision and the enduring value of his contributions to the field of medicine.